There was a physiologist and a doctor who realized we're missing something. We need to look at the why and go upstream instead of looking downstream and treating the downstream effect. So they actually looked at it from a chemical standpoint. They looked at it upstream from a more systems approach instead of a real siloed approach. That happened about 20 years ago. It's been growing. The functional medicine movement, if you will, or re-educating providers has grown over the last 20 years or so to become what it is today. There's two different things that happen with thyroid disease. So let's talk about how thyroid hormones are produced. Or TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. The anterior pituitary gland releases a hormone that tells the thyroid to make hormone called T4. And the thyroid's like, okay, I'll make T4. It gets converted to another hormone called T3. And that's the usable form. That's what regulates the different body systems or functions in the body. Then as T3 is made, the brain senses that and it stops talking. It's called a positive feedback loop where there's a message from the brain to the thyroid to the brain and back and forth. It's always keeping things in homeostasis. Thyroid hormone is really just the thyroid messenger. Any hormone is a message that goes to the cell. When the cell works the way it's supposed to, the message sits on the receptor on the cell, goes into the cell, and it makes the changes in the cell to do what it's supposed to do. The gut component is when our digestive tract is affected by any number of things. We can create this term called leaky gut. We eat the food that we eat. We think that we're doing great. Maybe we eat processed food, not so great. Even if we eat good organic food, what can happen in the gut is we have these cells that are called epithelial cells, and they sit stacked up like bricks. They have these little hairs on them called villi. And then on the side of the villi, they have microvilli. That's where we absorb our nutrients. They're stuck together real tight. It's called a tight junction. When we eat things, especially things that are non-organic, that are sprayed with pesticides like glyphosate, damages the gut. These tight junctions spread apart. And sometimes the damage is so bad, it actually creates fissures through the cell. Anything that was supposed to stay in the digestive tract, food particles, now make their way into the bloodstream. When that happens, our immune system goes, hey, what's that? Foreign invader, red alert. And it's usually the protein of the food. Gliadin, that's the protein that's in wheat. The body sees this gliadin, the fancy name is the antigen, foreign invader, and the immune system creates antibodies against the antigen, but heightens the immune system. And then we have all these antibodies circulating throughout the body. Guess what? Our thyroid tissue very closely resembles gliadin. Now the immune system has made all these antibodies against this gliadin protein. Then it looks at our thyroid and goes, hey, you're a foreign invader. I don't like you. And it starts attacking the thyroid. When the thyroid becomes inflamed, the fancy word is thyroiditis. It's just inflammation of the thyroid. Then it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. We have the hormones messages that aren't getting into the cell, but the other part of it is then when the thyroid becomes inflamed and those cells start to not function, then their ability to make the hormone that it's supposed to really diminishes. Then that positive feedback loop that we talked about really gets affected. And that's what Hashimoto's thyroiditis really is, when the body has decided that the thyroid is a foreign invader and it starts attacking it, and the overall function of the thyroid really diminishes. The problem started in the gut, now has affected the thyroid tissue. And it doesn't stop with that. Leaky gut, or the intestinal permeability is the fancy name, can affect a lot of other things, but that's the relationship between the gut and the thyroid. Our cells are surrounded by this phospholipid, the fancy name is the phospholipid bilayer. The cell membrane is made up of fatty acids, and on the cell membrane sits these little receptors where we receive messages. We receive messages from hormones, we receive messages from vitamins, we receive other kind of messages, antibodies, different things like that. When our cell membrane becomes inflamed, and it can become inflamed for a lot of different reasons, but we have the cell membrane receptors, the hormones sit on the receptors. Either they have a hard time sitting on the receptors, or the cell membrane is so inflamed, they can't get their message down inside the cell. Then the cell doesn't work the way it's supposed to. It doesn't receive the hormone. Then the function of whatever that particular cell is supposed to do starts to become affected and is not able to do. The very base level of everything of who we are, every function and every part of the body is cellular, is the cell. So if our cells are unhealthy, then the rest of us, every system is going to get affected in one way or the other.